Hey Gaurav, welcome.
Hi Bhaiya, how are you?
Good, good, good. So Gaurav, last time we discussed about history of stock markets. Why do
Yes.
they exist? How they came into being, and about different stock markets globally and all. So today I'll discuss about Indian stock markets.
Okay.
Since we have to trade in India only, and we will be actively trading in Indian stock markets. So we know about history of Indian stock markets and Indian stock exchanges specifically, right? So last time we discussed two Indian stock exchanges, namely NSE and
And
BSE.
BSc. Yeah.
NSE is more recent and BSE has a largest history. So we straight away go back to discussing stock markets.
Okay.
Okay. So I'll share some screen with you and then we'll take it step by step. Okay.
Okay.
So so I go to Indian stock market history here. So the origin of stock market goes to 18th century. Just to recall what we discussed last time, 1850 में Companies Act आया, and then in 1875 an association of brokers was formed. So first companies, then brokers, and then exchanges.
Yeah.
And so this we already discussed. So see what happened. 1986, we hear a term this called Sensex. Sensex is very commonly heard,
Yes,
right?
Bhaiya.
So it was developed in 1986 with 30 components. 30 components. I'm not sure, but probably they took 30 components inspired by Dow Jones, which is again based on 30 scripts.
Okay.
So, and the base year was 100 based on 1978-79. So, so what is this base year and how index is calculated? We will discuss it later on in the
Okay.
index calculation methodology that I will be discussing in coming future. So this is Sensex. Sensex is the index which is representative of Bombay Stock Exchange or BSE. So here is the index, how it grew from in 1990. It was at below 2000, and from there it went up to 19,000 in January 2007. And now, what is the level of Sensex that we are seeing? You have any
60,
idea?
63, I think 63,000.
Yeah, 63, 65,000.
Yeah.
That's where about index is. So the base year was 100 in 1978, let's say. So from there, let's say 32 plus about 55 years not 55, yeah, in a time span of 55 years, index Sensex value of 100 has come to 65,000. So it has become more than how many times it has gone from 100 to 65,000? It's gone 650 times.
Yeah.
650 times. So this is the kind of growth in Indian corporate sector that we have seen. And are you aware of about Harshit Mehta scam?
Yeah, I have seen that web series, Harshad Mehta web series. And
What is the name of that web series?
Scam 1992, Scam of
Yeah,
92,
yeah, yeah.
something like that.
Scam 92, I think that is. I
Yeah, yeah,
haven't
yeah.
seen that. I've seen movie Gafla, but
Okay.
even when this scam was happening, I was a school going kid at that time, but still I remember how the stock market was on everybody's mind and everybody was following stock market. So that was also the time when stock market become popular. It became popular and it was a household talk. Before
Okay.
that, very few know about very few knew about stock market, even if it is existed. And also even that scam or whatever you call it, it has that positive impact. And during that scam also, there because there was a lot of volume that's were increasing in the markets, and there was a lot of participation. And this situation, as this slide is, this situation led to the creation of Securities and Exchange Board of India, which enforced regulations and guidelines. This helped the Indian stock market regain its footing and move forward. Now this was the very very important point in Indian stock market history. Earlier there was only one exchange, Bombay Stock Exchange. It was
Okay.
governed by a governing body which was again made up of brokers. So it was an association. It was just like a mandi association, where
Okay.
we see like association in a Anaj mandi, where some few traders get together, they have some elections and they choose their pradhan and the governing body members and all that stuff. So there was no professional management as such. So that was also somehow hampering the growth, because the power was within few individuals, and there was clash of also interest, because the exchange was regulating brokers and exchange itself was governed by brokers. So that was not a very good system, very robust system, I would say. So in 1992, Securities and Exchange Board of India was developed, which came out with various regulations regarding to secondary and primary markets. So this was a milestone for Indian stock market. Now in 1992 to 94, we saw the starting of National Stock
NSE.
Exchange. National Stock Exchange was totally different, because it was the first exchange which was electronically based. So what do you mean by electronic based? Earlier in last class, we also discussed about how scripts were traded on floor of the exchange
Yeah, man.
with show of hands and shouting and all. But now National Stock Exchange from the very beginning was supposed to be based on electronic
Electronic.
platform. There was no physical hall where people will gather together. No. So trading was to take place in electronic through
Electronic.
computers. So
Yeah.
everything was computerized buying and selling. So this was the first time that was happening. So this was also a milestone time, because in a country where reach of computers was very limited, exchange came with electronic buying and selling of shares. So in 1995, we saw National Securities Clearing Corporation was developed, Investor Protection Fund was developed or set up, I would say. Largest of NSE became the 1995 became the largest stock exchange. So just within a couple of years of its inception, NSE was able to overtake BSE,
Okay.
and then came the index S&P CNX Nifty. So Nifty is based upon 50
Last.
script. So
Yeah.
we also call it NSE
Nifty
50 or
50.
Nifty 50. Yeah. So and then settlement guarantee fund and uh, all these things. And then there was another, I personally feel was a milestone, was commencement of derivatives trading. Earlier there was only cash settlement or the equity cash settlement. Now derivatives were introduced in India. Derivatives were introduced in index futures. Like we know about Nifty 50. Nifty 50 is the main index of National Stock Exchange, which is an
Yeah.
average of 50 stocks. So that Nifty 50 index was traded in future segment. So there were futures contract that were developed, and then they've also brought in index options. So you might be inclined to ask me, what are these? What do you mean by derivatives? What are futures? What are options? We will be coming to that, but
Okay.
this is how Indian stock markets are very recent. As if you see, we saw these futures and options in Western market or American markets like 20-30 years before before they were even introduced in India. So we are lagging 20-30 years in various aspects, but we are quickly catching up on to it. I'll show you how we are catching up to it. So in
Okay.
2001, we started trading in futures of individual securities. I'll tell you briefly. Individual securities like companies like Reliance, Tata Steel, TCS, Infosys, these are individual companies. So
Okay.
when we trade in a particular options or futures of these particular companies, they are called individual stock futures or individual stock options. And when we trade in Nifty 50 or Bank Nifty, these products, they are indices. So when we trade in these, we will call it index futures or index options, depending on the derivatives that we are trading. Okay. So then they also launched ETFs, government securities, debt market, and then various other indices were introduced, CNXIT, Bank Nifty, and so on and so forth. So, and this this slide is a bit old, but we also later we also launched currency derivatives. That means INR was traded with US dollars, with Japanese yen, euro, British pound. and that I think probably happened in year 2012, 13. I can't recall exactly. And then in
Okay.
2017, we saw trading in index options and index options on weekly expiry. So earlier there used to be month-long expiry.
Monthly.
Last Thursday of the month used to be the expiry of all those options and futures contract, but then weekly expiry were introduced. That means the length of that period was one of the expiry was happening on every week. Okay, so every week we had expiry. So that was also a very interesting development for individual traders. So now we come to present state of Indian stock markets. After, like I am telling you the timeline from last 50 years, how things
Okay.
happen, the major milestone. Now we discuss about what is happening in year 2023, what we are seeing presently. So I'll come to that. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah. So I'll share a slide for that. Just wait, give me a moment. Yeah. So so here we already discussed about the this
BSE.
about history of BSE. Now I wanted to show this slide to highlight this fact. We know Bimal Jalan was RBI governor at time. So there was a committee, and it says only India's 3% of India's population is invested in stock market, as compared to 27% in US and 10% in China. So this point also highlights the kind of scope that we are left with growing number of people joining, having bank accounts, with growing number of people using loan facility, with growing number of people doing transaction electronically. It's the the prediction is that number of people participating in stock markets will keep on growing, and with the growth of Indian economy, the depth and the size of Indian companies will keep on growing. This is what I have been seeing in last 15 years, or I would say this is what I have been seeing in last 22 years, ever since I'd done my MBA in finance. I have keeping a close. I have been keeping a close watch on financial market. They are growing. I cleared my first NCFM exam. At that time, it was named something different. I think that was 2001 when I cleared
Okay.
derivative exam. So that was 22 years back. So since then, I am keeping a watch. Before becoming a full time trader, I was like watching market from the sideline for 5 7 years. So I have always seen markets growing. Although the prices may went up and down, but ultimately the Indian economy and size of market and number of participants is always growing. It has grown from on NSE from few millions to now several hundred millions, and DP accounts are there. So it I hopefully it will keep on growing at an increasing pace. This I am very hopeful about. So next I show you this another window. I show you Sensex. We have already discussed how it is
Yeah.
calculated. Yeah, we have already discussed this. So now I tell you about where we stand, where India stand in terms of size of the markets. Okay, we
Okay.
know that India is the third largest economy, in terms of purchasing power parity, and fifth largest economy in terms of US dollars. So
Yeah.
let's take as fifth largest economy for the time being, and let's see where our stock markets are standing. Okay,
Okay.
biggest stock exchanges are New York Stock Exchange in terms of electronic order book share trading. So the value of share traded stands at 3094 billion. That is about 3 trillion. That is
Okay.
3 trillion US dollars that we are talking about here. This is the size of volume in a particular exchange, world exchanges, and see where India is standing. So we see that the largest stock exchange is New
New
York Stock
York.
Exchange for
Yeah.
equities, where we have turnover is about 3 trillion, and then followed by Nasdaq, again American exchange, with more than
2 trillion.
2000 billion of turnover. Then China, Shenzhen, and Shanghai stock exchanges. Do you know? I have seen Shenzhen stock exchange. Several
Oh,
years ago, 20 years ago, when I used to live in Shenzhen, I used to I used to see that building, Shenzhen Stock Exchange. I never knew at that time that
you're joining.
they are so huge in size. Yeah, I never knew.
Okay.
I used to see that building, and see, in all these exchanges, Japan Stock Exchange, Hong Kong, Euronext, Korea Stock Exchange, TMX, CBOE, Taiwan, Deutsche Börse, and then comes the National Stock Exchange. So National Stock Exchange is so low. Even the Koreans, which are in terms of economy, they are uh, significant size, but still smaller than India, much smaller country, but with much smaller population, and still they are far ahead of us in terms of equity volume. So that also shows that we are far behind, and that shows the scope that we have, that the kind of growth that we can see in terms of
Opportunity.
equity participation. So that is a very good thing for a budding trader, that you are entering something which has lot of growth expected in coming years. Okay, so
Yeah.
this is one important piece of information that is very material for you now. But see this, what it says: NSE remains the largest global derivative market for third straight year. So let me clarify here that although NSE is the largest player in terms of number of contracts traded, number
Okay.
of contract traders and value of traded is different. I'll quickly tell you number of contracts. Say, let's say a contract for 50 stocks, or the multiplier is 50 and the value is, let's say, 100.
Okay.
Let's say value is 100. So it is still one contract. And let's say contract which has a multiplier of 500 and value is 10,000. So the value in terms of notional value will be 1000 into 500.
500.
Yeah, but in initial in example one, it was 50 into 100. Both will be counted as one contract, but in size of value wise, the second one is
Second one is
multiple
great.
times higher than the first one. So in terms of number of contracts, we are number one. We are by far number one, but in terms of value, we are not
We are
number
number
one,
one.
because probably other countries are having contracts of much bigger sizes probably. So that is the reason.
Okay.
I'll show you a data set. Equity derivatives. Here you will see. Okay. Now see volume of equity derivatives. Derivatives are growing so fast. In 2012, it was 4 billion, about 4.5 billion contracts in 2012. And now from 4.5 billion to we have come to about 38 billion. Maybe now we have well crossed the 40 billion mark as well. So just imagine in a 10-year period, something is growing tenfold. The
Yeah.
volumes across the world are growing tenfold. So this is the kind of expansion that we are seeing in equity markets and derivative markets. So this is something growing economy, and it is attracting people from every strata of the society, and obviously it is a global phenomena that more and more participation is growing in,
Indian
so
stock market.
in stock markets. So I show you here. This is 10 exchange by number of single stock options. A single stock option means, again, I show individual stocks like Reliance, Tata Steel, whatever. So all these stocks. So in this, we are globally ranked number 7. We are globally ranked number 7. And further but see, scope, various Brazilian individual stocks are among the top traded stocks. Even they are ahead of Apple's or Tesla of US.
Yeah.
So maybe we have some individual stocks which are at number 1. Now in futures also, individual stock futures, we are globally number 5th. This is data from 2021. Maybe we are
Okay.
one or two places up or down, but okay. So now we come to individual stock option, number of contracts traded. So number of contract traders is here. We are way ahead of Korea Stock
Second.
Exchange, which is
Yeah.
number 2. Yeah, we are way ahead of them.
Yeah.
How much is
Almost.
it? It is a big number. I am not even able to read. I believe it is 13 billion somewhere, about 13
Yeah.
billion contracts traded annually, and which is the most most traded instrument or
Bank
the
Nifty
derivative is Bank Nifty and
and
Nifty. These are
yeah,
the two most traded
insurance.
derivative index options across the world. And
Yeah.
this is with this honor is with Indian stock exchanges and mainly with NSE. Bank Nifty and Nifty are the most traded instruments. So then I'll share the link to this report, and you can have
Okay.
a good read about it. Okay, and if you have
Yeah.
any questions, you can ask me about those questions. So uh, this is about where we stand in terms of different kind of products that are available and different kind of volumes that we are creating, and this also shows the growth that we are having.
Okay.
In next meeting we will be discussing about various indices and how indices are created and what it really means. Okay,
Okay.
so for
Okay.
the time being, you read about all these reports and understand about the Indian stock market, specifically about NSE and the various kind of products that are available. What
Okay,
are
brother.
exactly derivatives? What are futures? What are options? I'll be telling you in details in coming time. But for the time being, you read the reports and do make notes and do come up with queries when we meet next. Okay,
Okay.
brother. Take
Okay,
care. Have a
bhaiya.
great day ahead.
Yeah.
Okay,
Thank you,
bye.
bhaiya. Thank you.